What's up guys, this is Yacineygo and today we're going to be going over the best hand shops in Yu-Gi mons right now. So there's 33 of them and we're going to be ranking them in these 5 beautiful categories. So make sure that you watch until the very end, otherwise you're going to be missing out on all of my explanations, which is pretty much the most important thing about this whole video. But anyways, before we go any further, you already know the drill, smash the like, subscribe button, blah blah blah. Okay, so the first one is Imperm, which is a card that you basically have to main deck because I can't really see anyone ever wanting to side deck Imperm. So it's either that you main deck the card or you just don't play it at all if you want to play some board breakers instead. But this one is like so flexible because it's kind of like a hand shop and a board breaker at the same time. Basically it has like no real drawback, but to be fair, talent and crossout went to 1, which justifies a lot of other hand shops which used to kind of give more reason for Imperm to be above them. But to be fair, this is probably better than most of them anyways, like even outside of talent, crossout, and called by. Yeah, crossout has nothing to do with that because crossout can negate everything anyways. But yeah, no, this is for sure a card that you want to play in basically every deck out there. Typhoon. Yeah, this one is like anywhere between niche and meh because it's only really good against like Blue Eyes and like some decks out there if you want to get rid of one card. Maybe against Odeon it's not too bad if you want to destroy like their traps as they're chaining it. And also you can use it on the field spell when they try to, I think, search. But you can also Ogre, and yeah, it just feels like there's no difference between Ogre and Typhoon at times. But this card is just more niche, so it's probably just going to be there. It's not bad at all, though. Ash is also a card that I think you have to main deck. And now that Crossout is at 1, it means that the Chummies, basically, if you want to stop them, it has to be by Ash. It can't be with Crossout anymore, unless you're really stupid and you want to side in 1 Crossout with 1 Fua, 1 Perolia. Then again, you're basically playing 1 Brilliant Fusion and 2 Gemini Garnet. And if you think that is smart, you really need to, you know, go check out a doctor. Miradora, there we go. DD Crow, yeah, that's definitely a meh card. I really don't like it. I don't understand the hype behind it. I don't understand how people can ever look at this card and be like, oh, this card is so good or something. No, just no. It's really bad. Like, even in like, I mean, in basically anything, really. I just don't really think that this card will ever help you out. I mean, it can hurt the opponent a little more. Like, if you're playing against random decks that have to, you know, have some spells and traps in the graveyard, but that's rarely the case. Usually you're trying to banish monsters anyways. And if you're banishing a monster with this card, if you're banishing a light or dark, it feels even worse because then this card could have just been a Bestial instead, and it would have been like literally 5 times better. Nibiru is very interesting. It's actually neither a side deck staple, neither a card that you've got a main deck, just because I think they're going to be playing decks that don't even lose to this card anyways. Like Memento doesn't really lose to Nibiru. Pure Razor doesn't really lose to this card. I guess against like Malice, it's definitely a good card though. But also if they play Malice Fiendsmith, then they can rush a Caesar and like 5 summons if they've got like Engraver. If they got Engraver Dormouse, it's game over for you. So if this is the one and only hand shop that you've got, honestly it's not even that worth it. And because of the fact that the combo decks just got like a huge nerf, I don't even well, I mean, not really the combo decks, but I mean, what I'm trying to say is this is going to be like, the end boards are like so much more manageable with board breakers instead of hand shops that you don't even need like this card and another card. You can just play like 1 Book of Eclipse or 1 Ultimate Slayer to get rid of like the whole like Razor board and stuff like that, and it should be fine. Obviously, that was still the case before, but now their deck is even less consistent. And I don't know if I really believe in this card. Obviously, it's good when you're going first and you have like your whole board and you have got Nibiru, but you can also say the same thing about Drill and Logbird, which I think is better than Nibiru. So yeah, this is probably between like side deck staple and niche. Maybe it's gonna be like at the very bottom. The thing is, I said like side deck staple 100%, but this one is not necessarily a card that you gotta play at 100%. It's more like in the a niche kind of card, which feels a little weird to say, but yeah. Bestials, these ones are also kind of niche, but I still think they're good because the Fiendsmith engine is very insane. And obviously, you can still do 1 Magnamut and 1 Druisworm with like very minimal commitment, and it should be fine. So it's not like you gotta really do like triple Druisworm and triple Baldrick for the Magnamut to be good. No, so this card's pretty nice. Artifact Lancia is also very interesting because I think the Malice deck, it's not even a deck that like necessarily requires you to play Lancia against because, again, they only have 8 starters now. The deck is ultra inconsistent. And I'm assuming that every Malice deck is going to be playing the Fiendsmith engine, because I think that's like the smartest thing to do. Otherwise, you're just going to break every single time, except if you play like Silent Mining and like some other cards. But even then, you're still going to break like super often. Like, you're going to break like almost 20% of the time, even if you play Silent Mining. And if you get ashed and imperved and stuff, it's going to be even worse for you. So I think Lancia is not even a card that you necessarily need this format. I think you're better off with other cards if you want to stop Malice, just try to play cards that like overlap for Malice, Fiendsmith, and Memento, and Mochimi Meows is like the perfect card for that. So if you were playing Lancia before and not Meows, this time you should be doing the exact opposite. If you're playing Lancia in your side, that means that you're trying to respect Malice to an absolute maximum because you already have a very good matchup against everything else. So again, this card is very good, but I genuinely do not see Artifact Lancia being a card that you have to side deck. It really just isn't. Kree Photon, yeah, no. Gamma, this is also meh. And obviously where there's Gamma, there's always going to be a Delta. Because, yeah, one can't really be played without the other. I mean, you technically could be playing Delta with no Gamma, but if you do one Gamma, one Driver, yeah, again, you're very stupid, my bad. But yeah, no, I don't know. I just don't really think that these cards will ever be worth playing while this card is at 1. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's just not good. It's not even like about the format itself. It's just like the cards are not good because they require like a brick, and also going first, it's just less good. The Chummies are just better cards with like all their drawbacks, like, because this also has like crazy drawbacks, like you can only use them while you control no monsters, I believe. Dominus Impulse, if you can main deck this card, you're definitely main decking this card. It's really good against the Fiendsmith engine, right? You can still negate, I mean, you can't really negate Lori in the grave unless your opponent already has like another card on the field, but you can negate, I guess, Engraver, you can negate Sequence. It's not really bad. You can also draw it for turn, and it's not too bad. You can negate like IP Masquerena to try to quick link. You can negate like a, you know, the Lacrima that's trying to revive back the Requiem, which is also not too bad. So yeah, I just like this card overall for just so many reasons. It's very similar to like Imperm in a way, but maybe a little better. But the drawback for this card can be annoying at times. It depends on like the deck that you're playing. But if you're playing like say a Crystron, it feels very tempting to play a Dominus Impulse because you're playing a water deck. But then you look at the extra deck, okay, I can't go into Infinity, I can't go into Dragster. Yeah, alright, this time I'm not going to be main decking or even playing Dominus Impulse at all. So I guess that's like the one consideration. If it does clash to some degree, at least for the extra deck cards, it's not worth it. And if you're also playing a deck like Malice Kashtira, maybe not worth it. I don't know, Malice Fiendsmith, this deck definitely cannot play Dominus Impulse. So again, if your deck can't play this card with 0 conflicting, then play it. But don't make your deck worse by playing this card when it doesn't really fit in super well. Mochimi Furos, I definitely think, is a card that you absolutely have to main deck. This card is insanity, like extremely good. Probably the best hand trap in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. I mean, it really just has to be. It's interchangeable with Ash. I mean, it's for sure better than Imperm. I feel way more confident winning going second when I've got this in my hand than literally any other hand trap, because this can be like a turn skip. My opponent doesn't really play the game too much, and it gets me really far. Huge fan of Mochimi Furos for almost every single matchup, and it overlaps for basically everything out there. I mean, it's good against the Fiendsmith based decks, it's good against like Razul, it's good against Malice. I mean, it's not like insane against Razul, but you get the point. It's not garbage against Memento, even though there's other chummies that definitely are insane against Memento. I don't know, it almost feels like it has like no terrible matchup at the very least, because people are always going to be playing like one engine that's going to play into this, or like some cards that are just not really good into Furos, or like some lines maybe. So yeah, this card can always get some value in. Retelling Sea, I think, is a card that people are going to start messing around with, because it is the only silver bullet for Memento, because that deck, historically, it's always been known to struggle with Shifter. But now that Shifter is at 1 and Memento is going super up in popularity and in traction because it just won the YCS and it got almost a buff, literally. Actually, it basically got a buff from the ban list with Dweller getting banned and Shifter getting limited. This is basically the only one card that auto wins against Memento, literally on the spot. Activate Memento Fusion or Bone Party or Breakout. Okay, Chain Retelling Sea, all of your cards get banished. You can't really out this card without having to go like neck 5. So yeah, even if you do out the Retelling Sea, it actually plays in my favor. This card is complete insanity, but then again, you're only citing this card in for like one matchup, unless you're playing against like Chimera, or I don't even know like what other deck can play into Retelling Sea, but I will be making an in-depth video on this card very soon, so stay tuned. Definitely very interesting. Ghost Mourner is probably going to be like at the top of the meh section, just because if you're playing Mourner, you're playing like 24 hand traps in your deck, because there's always so many better options. Like, you're always playing this card after playing Ash, Imperm, Veiler, Ogre, the Chummies, a bunch of other things. Like, this is like priority number 27. It's really just not that good, unfortunately. No material garbage, obviously. Ghost Ogre, yeah, definitely niche, but it's actually kind of cool. It's not a card that I would ever side. I would either main deck or just not play at all. So I think it's probably in this section. By the way, this is not necessarily like a hierarchy of, oh, these cards are better than these necessarily. Because these ones, I guess you can argue, if you're not playing them, sometimes it's because they just don't really make sense with your siding patterns or with the space that you have in your side deck. Whereas these cards, I mean, right now there's only Magnabots, so you can't really understand. But eventually, when this will be getting filled up, you will understand why this section is pretty relevant. But yeah, whatever. Ghost Sister, it's a time card, but you don't need it. Ghost Reaper, also very interesting. There's actually kind of more to say about Reaper than almost anything else here. I mean, Retaliating Sea also has a lot of explanation behind it. I guess Typhoon is also very spicy. But Ghost Reaper is super unique this format because the Fiendsmith engine obviously is going to be gaining a lot in popularity. And if you can Reaper the Requiem, you kind of just win the game. Not gonna lie, it's absolutely devastating. But this is not really good against Malice because if you banish like their White Binder, well, yeah, they can't use the effect, but they can go Hearts of Cryptor to recycle it back into the extra deck and then just summon it again. So the only Reaper target for Malice, unfortunately, would be Hearts of Cryptor. You can Reaper Duo Drive, and then with their one-of Detonator, it's going to be really hard for them to win. So I like this card a lot, and it has a lot of great applications, and I absolutely will be making an in-depth video on this card alongside Kashtira Unicorn, because obviously they're kind of similar. Okay, one of the more interesting hand shops of the format. This one is super interesting. It's either between niche but playable and side deck staple 100%. I don't think this is a card that you have to play. You actually don't have to if you don't want to, but actually I think better than any of the bad bestials if you're just playing them as hand shops. Like if you're playing Magnamut and Jew's Worm, then obviously it's better to draw a Magnamut than an Ally of Justice Cycle Reader. Obviously, no shit. But if you're starting to play like Saroniers and stuff just so that you can DD Crow your opponent's Light and Darks, like the Fiendsmith, stop the cap. Just play Ally of Justice Cycle Reader, because banishing like the Requiem and Engraver, or like Lacrima even, is kinda nasty, because it basically shuts down like their whole engine completely. No more Recursion, you're basically doing nothing with your cards, and it's not once per turn if I recall correctly. You can also, I guess, like do some synchro plays with it, not that it really matters, but I actually like this card a lot, and it's a machine, so obviously it gets bonus points for me. Out of Justice Cycle Reader is super interesting. I don't know if I'm going to make a video on it, but if there's anything more that I get to really cover about it, then maybe. If you guys show interest in that. Restored Soul is dog shit, obviously. Actually, still better than Miradora, because this card is like actually the worst hand shop I can think of. Like out of all of them that can actually stop like a card, this is like particularly bad. Skullmeister. Okay, Unchained with 2 Sharvara might be a thing, but probably not. And it's actually not like terrible against like the Fiendsmith based decks, but it's still really bad because if they got like a Necrokip and then you go Skullmeister, you're giving them a draw. So yeah, this is always worse than like DD Crow and stuff. But in theory, it's actually playable, and it's a level 4 monster. So if that matters for you, if you're playing like Mathmech, for example, this is a hand trap that you can easily play in your deck. So Mathmech, if you didn't know before, if you can play level 4 monsters in the Mathmech deck, it makes your deck significantly more consistent, because even if you go first and you draw, let's say, 4 arrows and subtraction or addition, that gets you to getting your play started. Like you can make I don't know, a Heat Soul and Super Factorial and set up for going first. So it's not even a great hand, and it still plays very well. So you can do that with 4 arrows, Pyrolia, Retelling Sea, Skullmeister, which is one of the reasons why I'm covering these cards. I mean, they're both level 4, and even though they're not like super generic, they don't completely suck. So Ghost Bell is far from bad. It's actually quite good, if anything. So I might actually put it here just because it's not bad at all against Malice. It does cover the Malice cards themselves. It does cover the Fiendsmith engine, right? It's actually better than Skullmeister in every way imaginable against it, I think. Because this time, you can still negate, you know, the Luri, even when your opponent has like no other cards on the field, unlike Dominus Impulse. This card you can draw it for turn, and it's actually quite good because you can still negate the GWC. Honestly, I think this card has a lot going for it, and I think it's gonna be like one of its best formats for sure. Just because, again, like there's more graveyard effects going on than before. There's gonna be less Raziel. Memento might definitely play into this. I'm not sure like to which extent, but yeah, if you can really look into this card and try to see like how it really interacts with every single deck out there, I think it's I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with how good it is. This is dog shit, obviously, because your opponent can easily just... I mean, this has, like, no good matchup, like, at all. It's just so bad. Even against Razio, I mean, maybe pure Razio, if they're locked under, like, Xyz only from 7th Tachyon and 7th Ascension. But yeah, there's also, like, the other one. Flying C, right? And then Contact C, I believe. Those should be the names. They can still negate with Aggregator. So yeah, as long as Aggregator is a thing, I can't really see these cards being, like, super insane. But they're not, like, trash, so at least... place them there, at the very least. Probably still worse than Ghost Mourner, not 100% sure. And I'm also not sure how accurate, like, this positioning is. Maybe Ogre should be bumped up here. Maybe Lancia is going to be here. Nibiru is going to be here. I don't know. I really don't know. And then, like, these 4 cards, super interchangeable. But yeah, these are going to be the most played. Probably not necessarily in order, but I already think that Ghost Bell is a better card to side than Lancia, honestly. It just covers more ground. Anyways, Phantasme, it's actually a really cool one for sure. It's really good against Malice, it's good against Fiendsmith. So again, it's overlap, which is what you want. But unfortunately, if you start drawing into the Chummies, it's completely useless. So you would need to draw into Nibiru for this card to be good. Otherwise, again, it really does nothing. And if you draw into Imperm, that's also completely useless. So it really does depend on how you play, how your deck is built. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a card that you have to side, unfortunately. Now, this is where it gets very interesting, because we have 2 cards right after the other that should be in this section. So these ones I would not main deck, but I would 100% side them in literally every single deck out there. If anything, much more of a priority than the Bestials. Because Molchami Meows, I think, it's crazy how it's going from, like, being a good Molchami to being, like, by far one of the best, because it's broken against Memento, it's insane against Malice, it's extremely good against the Fiendsmith engine, and that's already... I mean, you're already covering, like, 3 of the best, you know, engines and decks in the game right now. So the fact that this can cover, like, a bunch, like, a big portion of the metagame really plays in your favor. And then everything else, I mean, you can kind of cover with, like, the other Chummies. Whereas, like, some of these other cards, they cover less ground, and they're also less impactful. These ones is basically, like, turn skip to some extent. Really insane cards. Dimension Shifter... I mean, it's a one-off now, so if you want to play it, I mean, you can definitely play it. You can either, like, side deck it or, like, main deck it. I'm still gonna put it there because Shifter is Shifter, right? It's not like I can say the card is all of a sudden garbage just because it's at 1. It's still an insane card. It's still a god card, and it's super sacky. And when you draw it and resolve it, it feels completely unfair. But if you draw it for turn, then it's useless. If you draw it after grinding, then it's useless. It's just... whatever. It's just a card that you should forget about it, and when you do draw it, oh, all of a sudden, then, you know, that's cool that you did draw it, but yeah, it's not a card that I would ever consider in my calculations. Dueling Logbird, yeah, this one, I mean, it's actually so cracked that I think it's actually a card that you have to main deck, but the priority for it is probably below these 3, because if you want to play Droll and Foros at the same time, there might be some conflicting. So perhaps you might actually relocate Droll to, like, the side deck, but it's at the very least in, like, these 2 sections, like either in the main or the side for sure. It's not a card that I would really try not to play this format. That was very confusing for no good reason. This is definitely a card that I have to, like, consider in every single deck that I'm trying to play. That's what I mean. This is almost bad against, like, I mean, this is bad against almost nothing. Like Malice, for example, I mean, it's not great against them, but if they play some other engines, at the very least, you can take advantage of this card for game 1, and then you can side it out and replace it with another card if you have a bunch of, like, side deck cards for it. And then for, like, Razio, I mean, now they gotta play 7th Ascension, otherwise their deck bricks. That plays super hard into Droll, because then they search 7th Tachyon, their deck does nothing after that, so that's really cool for you. And then, yeah, Memento also plays pretty hard into Droll and Logbird, I guess I want to say, so that's also fantastic for you. Okay, Dominus Purge, I mean, it's kind of like in the same boat as Dominus Impulse, yeah. If you're playing Blue Eyes mid-range, then for sure this is in your deck. But I guess you can kind of argue that you don't necessarily need it, because if you Purge a Duo Drive and your opponent makes Detonator, you can't normal summon anything and then make a Typhon and break the board, unfortunately. So it is not perfect. You can actually even argue that it's worse than Ash Veiler, Ogre, and Imperm against Razul at times, but sometimes it's much better because... if you get to the grind game, you can start looping this card back with Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon over and over and over. And it's kind of like resetting back a Solemn Judgment in the grind game. Like, your opponent goes like, oh, finally, I top deck the card that gets me out of misery. Activate Bonfire. Nah, negate. Boom. or like normal, like special summon sword Raziel effect. No, negate and destroy, because now I've got a trap card in my grave. Completely nuts, nasty. Yeah, Effect Veiler. It's a card that I would either main deck or not play at all. I would never side deck this card, so it makes no sense to have in this section. And I do not think that it is a card that you absolutely have to main deck, so it's definitely going to be in the niche but playable section. And finally, we've got the Chaos Hunter, which is significantly worse than before. So before, you can actually argue that Chaos Hunter was kind of better than Mochimi Meows, depending on what deck you were playing, because this card allows you to play under Shifter, but Shifter now is at 1, and also Malice is going to be losing in popularity, and also if they play the Fiendsmith engine, they can just either make a Caesar to prevent you from, you know, summoning the Chaos Hunter, or they can just send it off of, what's-his-face, Engraver's effect, and then, yeah, you kind of feel a little stupid after that, unfortunately. So yeah, this is kind of a big problem for Chaos Hunter. It's still a good card. That's the reason why it's going to have to stay there. It's a little meh, but it's going to remain at the top of this section. So I think for the most part, I'm like relatively satisfied with the positioning of pretty much everything. I think it's relatively coherent. But if you have any feedback or any questions or whatever, I would love to hear about basically anything that you've got to say, either about the hand shops or about the format, whatever. You guys let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.